Perfect. Well, fantastic. I think we can get started. Would everyone up here, would you like to introduce yourselves? Or if I'm missing anyone, please let me know.
So I'm Alex. I'm co-founder and CEO of Econia Labs and the author of the Econia Protocol. I'm here to talk to you all today about hyper-parallelized on-chain order books, all things DeFi, and some interesting possibilities that we open up with Pith on the Aptos network.
And I am Mark. I work for the Peace Data Association, which is pretty much like the Swiss association behind the actual on-chain protocol. And overall, PIF, yes, is a financial-driven oracle specialized in price feed. And I work for the Peace Data Association for 2 years, not doing tons of technical stuff, but just mingling around and just trying to make DeFi what it aimed to be in the first place. Reprice TradFi. That's the end. Down the line goes to with Econia, you mix the on-chain, you mix up the centralized order book with some kind of high-performance oracle, and you end up with what's going to be the next leg up of the financial structure, hopefully.
Hopefully. For those listening, can you explain a little bit about why you want to decentralize the order book? Like what advantages it has and kind of what's the problem with the way things work today?
Yeah, of course.
So
please go.
So let's start maybe with the way things are today with centralized order books. So in the case of cryptocurrency exchanges, you typically have someone running an order book like Binance or Coinbase on an Amazon Web Services, cloud deployment or some other cloud provider. And the order book looks to the public as though there are, trades going through and that everything is sort of handled according to these official rules of the order book. But there's actually no sort of oversight on that. And we've seen throughout the history of centralized crypto exchanges that there has been, malfeasance in the way that sometimes internal trading teams have privileged access to order books. They might be able to front run retail. There's all these sort of issues with transparency. And even things like negative account balances we've seen programmed where people can place orders even if they don't have adequate collateral. If we think about the traditional finance space, the closest analog is going to be something like the NASDAQ or the New York Stock Exchange. And this is all centralized in, a data center in New Jersey, for example, which given that, the economic sort of power of one country is a pretty big lever it has in like geopolitical sort of, negotiations and such, like that makes it actually like a decent military target. And think about if someone were to bomb the New York Stock Exchange, like the American economy would pretty much come to a halt. And even so, like with consumers, if retail wants to buy, a share of Apple stock or something, they go on their Robinhood or their E-Trade account and they click buy. But along the way, there are like 6 or 7 middlemen who are taking a cut. They're batching up orders. They're submitting this order flow to larger organizations like Citadel, who are skimming off the top and front running and arbing retail. And then when it finally, the rubber hits the road, you have these extraordinarily privileged financial institutions that are running high frequency trading algorithms on the data center in New Jersey or wherever, if it's the NASDAQ, somewhere else. And they are paying millions of dollars essentially to just be closer to the server, to use an Ethernet cable that's a standard length so that they don't have some kind of unfair advantage over the other HFT participants who are paying all these millions of dollars to, get closer retail, like real estate. They have network engineers who are writing assembly code to minimize the number of operations. And it's all geared towards this very sort of non-transparent venue that only lets the most privileged players have access to place orders on the order book. And we contrast this with something that's available on-chain with Econia, where everything is completely transparent. Everyone can see the order that everyone has made. All the orders are fully collateralized. And on top of that, you have instant settlement. So when someone places a trade for, an equity or a commodity, often it doesn't actually clear for several days after the fact, and they can't move their funds off that, exchange or whatever. But with Econia, as soon as it clears, you can take it out of your market account. You can use it for something else in DeFi. You can buy an NFT with it, whatever. And so the way that Econia is built is composable to support not just traditional kind of spot trading, but also leverage, and so people can do margin trading, and we have sort of these extensible endpoints that support derivatives as well. And one of the premier use cases for that is perpetual futures, and this is sort of where Pith comes on, is because we need high fidelity on-chain price data, and sort of one of the tricks with the blockchain is that you need to get the data there so that you can process things like liquidation, so you can run funding rates and create these derivative financial instruments. But you need to have a sort of trusted network of data coming in from people who are potentially adversarial and are making sure that they're keeping each other honest. And this is sort of where Pith comes into play with DeFi, is providing this smarter data for these smarter contracts. And I think this might be a good time to hand it over to Pith and let them take it away from here.
That was a fantastic explanation and tee up.
I'm not from the traditional world, but everything you said just hit the spot, because that's one thing that, like, overall, at least from my perspective, one thing where crypto filled the void was very much onto the let's remove the middleman. And like, I very much feel like today you think order book trading, you think about US stock exchanges and just how just trades operate there. And one thing that like the blockchain brings, and all the teams like Iconia bring, is like very much the technical infrastructure for what exists today, but how it could be made better. And so this is amazing to work on, like working with the Iconia team and even broader. But this has been very much amazing to just like, if you put it even in like badly or frame it badly, like our goal as an Oracle, like it's a very B2B product, is to enable people. And what we've seen is people want to take over what they do. And overall, it has meant on the, let's say, blockchain side, like just running your own node, just or doing pretty much like, let's say, the general transaction. But it's been very like insane to see that many interest in like, my data needs to be good, my infrastructure needs to be good, it cannot be compromised. So this has been amazing to see that, like within the ecosystem, like people owning what they ship. And overall, I think we've seen better products in the past year being shipped just because of this. Like, you own what you deliver, and the whole like Iconia, like Aptos went live. I'll do some guesstimate, like 4-5 months ago. Please stop me if I'm wrong, but I would argue almost you could have went live by then, but it almost like you better wait a bit and ship the killer ass product so that it fits retail, but it feels people building on it. Because that's one thing that where Iconia, I feel, understood very early how to do, is almost your success is not driven by yourself, but it's driven by people using you. And Iconia has an amazing structure. And overall, like Iconia as an order book, I think Space has the same way. We enable people to do things. And I'm pretty sure that somehow people feels like they don't enable me enough, but any developer is like, Jesus, I can do anything I want. So that's one thing that very much excites me, is like random people, the permissionless way, just leveraging the tech to try to achieve what they want to. And same as Iconia, whether we know about what they do, down the line, we don't care. We are enabling people to do things.
That's an amazing way to put it.
Oh, yeah. I would extend everything that Mark just said about, maybe you could call it like pushing power to the edges. If we contrast the cycle of building and development on Aptos, with Akani, with Pith, with blockchains in general, there's this new dynamic that lets anyone sort of get in, and in the very like purest sense, like anyone can write a smart contract and publish on the blockchain. It's permissionless, and obviously that there's more that goes into it than that. But think about trying to start a business and try to disrupt or innovate on Wall Street nowadays. I mean, you have to have legions of network engineers who understand how to make an integrated circuit run, at the minimal number of clock cycles, just so you can squeeze one more instruction out and get your trade ahead in like less picoseconds or something, right? You have to have the right connections. You have to potentially understand how to lobby Congress to make sure that you can get favorable regulations for your product. There's so much overhead that goes into it in order to actually make an impact in that world. And a lot of it is already pretty entrenched. I mean, it's the incumbents are sort of kept in place by the existing laws and regulations. But now with blockchains, you can go online and you can look at an open source protocol like Akania or Pyth, and you can fork it for yourself. You can play around with the code. You can even make feature requests. And we see all these projects that are starting really just from people who met on Discord or who are hacking around with local friends, and they went to a hackathon. I mean, if we want to take a trip in the time machine 1 year ago, I think maybe exactly to the date, maybe it was May 5th or 8th or something last year, I can't recall, but Akania started as a hackathon project in the pre-mainnet hackathon in Palo Alto. And it grew into the project that it is today. And this part of, I don't say this to sort of like boast about Akania, but I say that like we were able to raise a $6.5 million seed round led by one of the most like prestigious venture funds in the space. And it's because there's so much dedication to the space from the people who are taking place and who respect the sort of building lifestyle that goes into this. And there's so many connections that are opened by that innovative cycle. It really is a bottom-up approach. And I think that's why we are so enthusiastic about the people who are building together, that are leveraging other people's tooling. This is why we're sponsoring the upcoming Aptos hackathon in Amsterdam, where there's a DeFi track with a first prize of $30,000. Second 20,000, third place 10,000, because we want to see the most innovation taking place from new teams who are thinking outside the box, that are really just ready to show up and like stay up and hack into the night, because that's really what pushes us forward. I mean, we don't have an army of like lobbyists, and we don't have like a few engineers with the right connections building the future finance. We have an entire like exponentially growing cohort of like, GitHub monkeys who are just pushing commit after commit and who won't stop, and nothing can really keep up with that because it's only growing. And I think that's one of the most sort of inspiring things about this space, is to see everybody hive minding together to build a new system that is unstoppable and much better than anything that has come before.
And just to add on this, I 100, if not 200% agree with this. It's just the ability, like where it shifts your mind, like because like our product is permissionless, so sometimes people have integrated, they ship products, and then they reach out to us saying like, oh, we love some co-marketing whatsoever. And it's one thing that's very powerful about like everything we do, and not just specifically around our protocol, but just kind of the open source kind of framework and mentality, like even in working. We could not know each other, spend 2 weeks, and just work up on the best product release ever. And it's been amazing to see that, like, at the end of the day, people don't care, just ship, trying to make the best to happen. And that's been amazing, especially working working around like with the new Aptos update and stuff. Like, it's been such a crazy time recently. It's been amazing to see people just committed to ship stuff. Like, it's where you make the difference between the thing that's gonna live and the things that's gonna die. And people are shipping stuff today. So that has been amazingly cool to see on Aptos land.
That is super inspiring, by the way. I'm excited to be building after hearing what you said, and I'm really glad that is the experience as well, right? Like I think we want to see the ecosystem grow, and it's really amazing that you were able to build, that you were able to raise, and congratulations! Like that's a huge accomplishment, and you're
But
able to launch
wh-
products.
what I want to emphasize is sometimes to all listening here, it could almost feel like what Twitter tells you. Don't listen to Twitter. Twitter's always biased. So very much it's shipping time. And well, maybe we'll go deeper into what we've shipped with Econia, but it's very much shipping time. So don't stay on the lines and just hope for the best. Like you're very close to shipping a $1 billion product in the next year. So everyone listening, if everyone's a hacking dev, like it's very much the time to just ask your queues, join the Discord, Aptos, Econia, hours, ask the questions, and just ship stuff. And it's the best time ever to try to ship stuff. So it's very much where you make the difference, and you'll feel where you make the difference. So like Pith, we're like 2 years old, so we're a bit much older than Aptos. Like we've partaken in many like hackathons and stuff. Nothing beats like having the home chain running it and just ship stuff. May not stick, but still, we're all early, so there's a good chance it stick, and you'll make it a success.
That is
I would
really good
add to.
advice.
Oh yeah. I would add too that a lot of the things that are now available for builders are providing the kind of fundamental tooling that is going up this dependency stack. And I think that the last 10 years of blockchain history have been like kind of condensed into a lot of very core principles that like we need a high performance L1, we need something that's trusted, and we need primitives that you can compose together. And I think with Aptos that we saw that base layer of like basically just a world, a computer that we can all program together that is secured by remove language with type safety, all these different sort of parallelism unlocks with Aptos. And then Akania and Pith, we're providing, fundamental building blocks within that virtual machine that you can then compose together. And so we have an order book, we have price feeds. And so there's so many things you can do now. You can do borrow, lend protocols with like automatic liquidations. You can do margin trading on top of the order book. You can do perpetual futures. There are options. And these are kinds of things that people that there's sort of like the protocol for these sorts of products is a kind of glue that connects things together. And you don't want to have people to have to create a new matching engine each time. You don't want to have people to reinvent a stable Oracle feed so that they can do the real work, which is creating structured products or helping people to go long or short with whatever leverage they want. And so I think that it makes me think of, I think it's this quote by like Abraham Lincoln, maybe it was, where he was saying like, give me 6 hours to cut down a tree and I will spend the first 4 sharpening the axe. And I think that those first 4 hours have sort of happened for anyone who wants to finally sort of hand over this experience to the user. Like we have the backend systems, we have the community support, we have this sort of snowball effect with all these builders working together, and the Aptos community is just getting off the ground. And so definitely echo that idea that now is the time to build. I think now is the time to look through these two sort of protocols and start seeing what is possible, how you can compose. I mean, we're glad to collaborate with teams in person, online, obviously. Like I was saying, we're going to be at this hackathon with Aptos at the the Hack Amsterdam. We're going to have 6 members of our team there. We're building out open source, across the board infrastructure tooling. We're working on a reference front end right now so that people can just clone it and fork it for themselves and have a high performance trading view dashboard that is on par with something like Coinbase. And so there's so many tools now that are out there for builders, and I think that this is almost like the high performance DeFi chat is really, to me, it's like the hyper efficient infrastructure chat that we're having right now, because we've got these sort of composable elements together. And I think I would also maybe like to hear a bit of if Wolfgang could chat more about like what it means to have Aptos as a tool that people can build on, like this shared computer, and maybe the context for that in the sort of the space of this new technology that we're all building together.
Before Wolfgang goes out, Pith will be at Amsterdam Aptos, or Pith, at least myself. So I'll be around. So I'll be happy to meet you guys. And excited to see what Aptos has to say on this.
Yeah, Wolfgang?
Yes, I'm here. Hello?
Wolfgang, if we're trying to build a high performance financial ecosystem, why would we want to do that on Aptos instead of on another blockchain?
Well, I mean, I think there are multiple reasons for that. So, you know that we do have a pretty sophisticated way of doing parallel execution in Aptos, so which will allow us to, or does allow us, we have proven that in the past, to scale up the TPS quite significantly, which is the actual achievable TPS, not the thing which you observe on a daily basis. So this is one reason. And another reason is also that because of the structure of the move language, and for example, the move language allows you to reason explicitly about what resources are read and what resources are written. Even though that we do not even exploit this today, we reached a high TPS, but in the future we may exploit that to even further push us up and to come up with some interesting technologies regarding sharding and horizontal scalability and so on, which allow us to push the cost or the speed even higher and the cost lower eventually. So I think these are basically, on the one hand, the amazing technology which our research team started to build already back at DM and then refined here at Aptos for the consensus protocol. And on the other hand, the capabilities of the move language and its parallelizability for high-speed execution.
With the sharding potential that you described earlier, what are your thoughts on almost like app-specific shards? Maybe there's one for an NFT marketplace or for an order book or oracles that they can publish within that shard. Do you think that inhibits composability? Do you think it's ultimately better for performance? Like, what kinds of discussions is Aptos having internally about these sort of implementations?
Yeah, so let's assume you would know from a transaction which resources it's going to read and write in dependency of its parameters. Now, indeed, it is not static, but it's determined by the parameters of the transaction, which is, for example, a set of addresses or signers. No? If you know this ahead of time, then when the transaction enters our system and goes into mempool, for example, you could already figure out, oh, okay, that transaction is going to read this area of memory and write to that area of memory, and this transaction is reading or writing to another area of memory. And you could basically distribute and multiplex those transactions to different nodes, which have different storage backends. No? That's what we mean with sharding. So this is one thing you can do. We are also considering, but that is indeed a little bit more experimental. It's also work started already back at Facebook, but continued here a little bit of basically running multiple blockchains with the same nodes. So and those blockchains like have bridges in between them. This is another way of sharding we are thinking about. It's not like the layer 2, layer 1, which you find typically. It's basically a couple of layer 1s which communicate via bridge to each other. And then inside of each of those particular chains, you can have high performance for a particular class of applications or a particular customer. That's another thing. Just to be clear, what I just said is indeed highly speculative and experimental, so we haven't really started deeply working on that, but definitely the parallelization, which I mentioned before, and the sharding based on read-write sets, that's something we will look at very soon.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that the parallelism that comes with Aptos is one of the first things that attracted us to building on Aptos. And when we often get this question of like, why build a Kanya on this specific L1 when there's so many other ones out there? And often the TLDR is because we couldn't build it anywhere else. I mean, there's specific things like the dynamic memory allocation and the optimistic concurrency that allow us to build this sort of autonomous order book in the sky that doesn't require anyone to sort of push things along from the outside, send in a trigger transaction, we're fully crankless, which contrasts with a lot of other order books in the ecosystem, or in DeFi in general across different L1s. And really, I can't even imagine trying to build something like that, like on Solana, for example, where you have to do this pessimistic form of concurrency. And so I think that all those performance unlocks ultimately are what give us this really great base layer tool to build on top of. And I think that one thing that's pretty amazing about what like Mark was saying earlier is how we're trying to create a better alternative to existing systems. I would say that with Pyth, this is almost like a public good that we don't really see anywhere else. This price data, like the closest thing I can think of is maybe is Bloomberg. But even so, if you want access to a Bloomberg terminal, I think if you're a university, you still have to pay maybe $25,000 a seat to get the financial data that institutions are using. And so I think that when there's this system that publishes it on chain in this public forum, that really kind of shifts the game, and I think makes people think like, oh, we now have this whiteboard in the sky with all this price data. Like, surely we can do something with that, and we already see the use cases for it. Like Mark was saying, people build stuff and reach out afterwards to say that. But I think that this marks a kind of paradigm shift in the idea that data now is becoming more valuable when it's on chain and when it's public than when it's siloed off and when someone tries to skim off the top from publishing it in a proprietary manner.
Exactly. Just to maybe reframe it, it's not so much about making that data available. Arguably, if you want to get access to that data today, you could have almost kind of front run every existing competitor, created your own oracle, just did the stuff. But what's very powerful, or where I feel it's the sticking point is like whenever you try to standardize things, no one's been standardizing or has even tried to do it. So that's where, at least, I think where our work with Econia rings also a lot is you'll get your classic, let's say, support, amazing, just deployment from the users, but you'll get, as long as you kind of explain to people what you're going to do, it's going to work 20 times better. So that's one very much thing that I love from the general like Aptos user base is that they're not just like your regular EVM user. I'm using this, I'm doing a trade. Like I don't care if you don't understand it. What I did get from the Aptos community is that at the end of the day, they're all trying to show you where or how it's getting built. And it was amazing. Like in the past months, we've seen the Aptos gas fees going down 10x. And from Pyth perspective, where it's very much like on demand, it's a buffet. Let's call Pyth a buffet. Since we've seen insane improvements on the technical side, we've had like 20x on the user side, on the request side. And it's like in blockchain today, it's not often like this. When you have a problem like of not enough user, it's not because of your chain, whatever. Just no one's fucking interested in doing it. But on the Aptos side, it's been amazing to see both the teams and even just the general kind of, I'll call it retail. It's a bad word, but retail as in user, it's been amazing to see them taking over things. And that's where I've seen in the past 2 months, and I can talk from a personal side. Like early on, anything, and even piece operation, price update was expensive. Months ago, shipped updates, and now Aptos is an amazing chain to use. Like it's a very much DeFi driven chain, and it's like from our perspective, it's to enable this. It's you are in power of everything you do. You could change the world, and our goal is to enable you to change the world. So that's very cool to see both kind of let's call it the general team, but also kind of the greater community come up to, yeah, that was expensive. Gas fees were expensive. And now everything went 10x lower and it's amazing. Like I've been personally using Aptos every day for a month now. So that's very cool to see dedicated teams like this, or dedicated might not be the best term, but people delivering on stuff like this. And this is what gets you going. Like PIF, we haven't raised the token. We are still in some way centralized, but it's amazing to see just people committing. They like the economy of the book, ship some stuff, see that, oh, the other book might not be the greatest, put PRs for it. So I've been very much, and after I'm keen to hear your thoughts on this, but I've been loving that Aptos move kind of developer base so far.
I love what you brought up about the bottom up approach of these developers, and everyone has this sort of initial vision they have, and then along the way they find one or two little things. They're like, okay, I need to fix this. Let me hack on that for a second, and then they build something that somebody else improves on, and they hack on that. And you mentioned, anyone can just submit a PR. I think Aptos has done a really good job of incorporating PRs. I would like to, I guess, commend and obviously just thank them for accepting mine at least. I remember when we were talking about this episode a little earlier, Greg was asking if I could talk about some of the CLI work I've been doing in the Aptos CLI. So I think this might be a good time. I've got this whole list of things that I've worked on with the core team that we wanted for Icania that we knew other people were going to want to deploy. So for example, we have poll number 7521. That's a vanity generator for the Aptos CLI. So now you can go in and you can create an address that starts with, F00CAFE. You can have it be Foo Cafe or whatever, right? These are the kinds of things that end up being really good for marketing for vanity addresses. There have been things in the Aptos CLI, like in poll 6793, we dried out some of the repeat code and made it a lot smoother to implement new features. Then we added a multi-sig vanity address. So now with this multi-sig V2 that Kevin and other members of the core team have been working on, you can create an on-chain multi-sig that lets people add and remove signatories. And it actually, all the voting is done on-chain. So you don't have to assemble signatures and then submit this kind of shared transaction. But also, since it's its own address, we wanted vanity support for that too. So we added that in. We added, and then also poll 7790, we added nested vector input for the Aptos CLI. So it used to be that you could only do vectors one argument deep. But now you can do 2 arguments deep, even up to 7, I think it is at this point. It just recursively parses it. So these are all things that we thought Icania would need for our deployment solution that we're going to, for when we launch and everything. But we realized that if we make this in this general sense, other people can use it and that the ecosystem as a whole can sort of profit from it. And I think that the Aptos, by just simply harnessing that and intaking all these assorted PRs, is creating a product that everybody owns together and that everyone wants to work on, and is we're creating Linux DeFi basically over here, which I think is really exciting to be a part of, to look through the repo and see all these different people's commits on everything. If you go in the Git blame, a file can have 100 people, for example. And I think the sort of really captivating part about this process of people writing code, submitting PRs 24/7 all around the world, is everyone is really just trying to create solutions for their own little kind of problem that gets in the way. Oh, we need standardized price data, right? Or we need to have a new CLI functionality. And in the end, we end up building this really compelling alternative because it's user and developer driven. And I think that it creates something that is sort of keeping traditional finance honest in a way. If even as existing financial systems are very entrenched and they're still performant, there's a reason we have things 500 trades per second on the NASDAQ and not on blockchains, because blockchains can't handle that yet. But I think that by having this sort of yardstick with things like organic borrow and lend rates on chain, sort of reaching a market equilibrium, you compare that with whatever the Fed is deciding arbitrarily at that moment it wants to have based on how it might want to curtail inflation. People are saying, okay, if I can get 2% on chain, but maybe it's only 0.25% off chain, maybe I'll just invest USDC in some, a curve pool or whatever, right? And I think too, with like the price data and these on-chain order books, we're creating a very like a very early sort of maybe like takeover is the right word. I don't know, that it's like, well, I know I can at least trade it on chain, and I know that I can at least have a fully collateralized counterparty, and it might be maybe not as fast if I'm like an HFT trading firm, but if I'm a general user, like I don't have to cede any power to middlemen. And I think that this is all the result of people just like bottom up building little quirks and fixes for their own sort of projects. And it's really exciting to see the sort of emergent effects of that phenomenon.
Where I do align 100% with you is we are up into like I understand the mesh up with everything that's already built, but it's very much into opening the door to what's gonna get built in the future, and that's where I very much like Aptos. Like a month ago, maybe not 2 months ago, 2 weeks ago, shipped let's say gas optimization. Let's call it this way. I don't know if it's the proper way, but it's being and overall working in crypto is very much this listening to feedback and shipping stuff that at the end of the day is going to make people use it, because you still have some like you have to grasp people away from what they've been using, and that's where I love where Aptos is going, is very much like abstracting the overall shitty, nitty gritty stuff away to just make you ship stuff and new stuff. And that's been very powerful, I feel.
Totally. On the note of shipping things as fast as possible, I'll put in a plug one more time about the hackathon to maybe entice some people's appetites, and then maybe we could go over questions because it looks like we're getting towards the end. But yeah, Aptos is having this hackathon in Amsterdam, the 5th through the 7th. 6 members of the Econi Labs team are actually going to be in Amsterdam for a week and a half before the hackathon, working together up until the last day of the hackathon. So if anyone wants to come meet us in person, come be there. And like I said earlier, we're sponsoring the DeFi track, and there's going to be a $30,000 top prize for the first prize, 20,000 for second, and 10 for the third. And if we had known there was a $30,000 top prize at the hackathon where we started working on our project, man, we probably would have had a little more built than we did last May when we showed up to Aptos Labs in Palo Alto. So please, anyone, like, now is the time to start cobbling together your prototypes, and I'm looking forward to like seeing all these and evaluating the different projects and seeing what kinds of things people can ship them.
And just to double on this, PIF has been like, we've supported a shit ton of hackathons. We're very much driver oriented. So ship stuff, DM us on Discord, Telegram, whatever. We'll figure it out how to help you out in the future. But that's one thing I've very much loved around the recent innovation, is that people ship stuff and ship usable stuff, and that has been amazing. Like, it's one thing you lack in crypto. Like, it's easy to get your announcement out of the door, but build something that's of use and double on it. So very much apply for the hackathon, get after those sweetie Iconia Iconia bounties. PIF will be around. We'll always be on the chain you want to, and likely we'll actually be able to help you out. So definitely build up. It's the time to build. Tech's getting better, so it's pretty much, I won't say now or never, but it's very much now compared to 5 years ago, you'll get the best experience ever.
That is amazing. Thank you. I agree. You want to take some people up now? I do see that we have some people in the audience who had requested. Okay, let me see if I can reclaim co-host. Otherwise, you want to pull Rainbow up?
I've just pulled up Rainbow, so I think that there should be that opportunity for that question. Let me know if there's something I need to do differently.
Hi. So I did have a question. Let's say like if we want to move over like to building on an Aptos, right? And let's say you were building in some other chains, but everything you guys said, like totally you sold me. Like you had me at hello. Like, can I marry one of you? It is honestly because coming from Web 2 until like Web 3, it has been like awful. And I am working on a project that is trying to put together a plan to bring people onto like Web 5, and it is awful. Like the just building on every other chain, but you guys had me at hello. I think I'm in love. How's the process though? Like if you're like a full node with another chain, because I've been building on all chains, but so what did the process look like?
Well, it's definitely easier now than it was a year ago when we were banging our head against the wall trying to teach ourselves move with minimal resources. But I will add that so at Kania Labs, we have a teach yourself move on Aptos guide on our GitHub repo. So Takania Labs is the GitHub organization, and there's teach yourself move guide. So that's got plenty of resources to start like in the smart contract side of things. I know Aptos has a lot of resources with running nodes, for example, on their site you mentioned. I think you were a node operator, and so I would definitely check out Aptos. As far as move goes, the language, my own personal take is that it's sort of like a maybe user-friendly C++. My background is actually embedded systems design and C engineering. And I learned Move, which is built on Rust, and then Rust, which I actually would recommend to people because Rust can be pretty complicated if you haven't done it before. And Move is like a subset of that. So as far as the sort of like language appraisal goes, that's what I would say. But yeah, Kanye Labs has resources for Teach Yourself Move on Aptos. And Aptos obviously has tutorials. I've written some of them. I think it was the your first multi-sig one I authored. So definitely, like if you find something and you think there should be a tutorial for it, just write it yourself and PR it into the doc site, and then we can all use it.
Okay, cool. No, that sounds great. It does. Thank you.
Thank you. Shelby?
Hello. So, I'm Shelby. I'm on the Aries Markets team, head of business development, and I have a few comments and then a question. So, first off, I love all three companies here. I was at the Aptos house at Consensus not last week, but the week before, and it was an incredible event. I loved the t-shirts. I loved the burgers. It was beautiful. I also was at the Pith data-driven happy hour at Consensus, another great event. Super impressed by both of you. And then I did meet with Akanya's team at NFT NYC and another great team there. Super impressed. And so my question is, how does Aptos new gas fee optimization improve the Pith price frequency update cost for the Aptos projects?
If you don't, I'll start here. So overall, I don't, or I might have numbers around, but I'm gonna say false number. But overall, I'm happy to share like proof of transaction in the like just after. But I don't want to say a wrong number, but overall, it's like Pith 50 times better for Aptos apps overall. If I recall correctly, right now, a piece price update would cost you like 10 cents or less. So overall, like the Aptos gas optimization, I'm pretty sure they bring, let's say, to because overall, when you use a piece price, you have to bring it from off chain to on chain, verify it, and the main cost of it is verifying it. But with the recent Aptos update, I'm pretty sure that now overall using a piece price is a few cents. So overall, I guess the recent updates or the recent Aptos improvement have brought like from the user perspective of piece prices, it brought like a 10x improvement from the cost perspective to you. And based on this, we're doing more stuff ourselves, but it's been like that update has been tremendous into making the base product better in quality to users. So gas efficiency and for sure we'll go through many times many improvements, but on that side today it's been very amazing to see how that improvement in gas has not just be, let's say, a retail driven thing. It's not just be use Aptos for like cheaper. It's been very much around like it's gonna make Aptos better. So that was amazing to see. And overall, that's on my end. That's what I've seen. Like it enabled people to get a better pith product out of it, and that's just what I'm about. Is make pith better for you, make more updates, whatnot. So overall, I've loved that cost update, and the overall like implementation of it has been amazing. So overall, like I'm striving for those improvements.
I'll add too that for anyone who's trying to optimize their own move package gas costs, there's an article on the Aptos Docs website called How Base Gas Works that I PR'd into Aptos. And it actually has some optimization principles talking about minimizing rights to global storage and in particular per item creations. So I'll leave it to the devs out there to get more into those technical details, but there's a helpful resource on there for anyone who wants to optimize their contracts even further.
That's great. Thank you guys so much.
Amazing. If anyone else has any other questions they'd like to ask, please raise your hand and we can bring you up. Also, I do see Shamrock join. Hey, Shamrock.
Yeah, hello. What's up, everyone? Always glad to be a part of Move Mondays. And also, I see we miss Greg today, and I really miss his voice. I believe he's voice of Move Mondays, for me at least, but I believe for most of us.
Yeah, Greg unfortunately wasn't able to make it for this one, but he will be back soon.
Yeah, hopefully. So actually, I have, as always, not a non-technical question, but like maybe pretty naive also. But let's say I'm a pure normie, and totally not familiar with DeFi, but I like a friend told me that Aptos is cool. So what will be your steps as DeFi like companies, projects? To explain me as simple as possible how to DeFi.
I'll take a crack at that. DeFi is internet money that doesn't require intermediaries to do the things that people have been doing in traditional finance for decades.
Okay, well, that's interesting. And actually, why I should pick Aptos and your project?
So, I mean, Aptos is the most performant L1 out there. I mean, it's got significant performance enhancements that have inspired our respective projects to build on the platform. And it was developed over years with very heavily financed research and engineering teams from within Facebook under the DM/Libra project. And that project got sort of open sourced and made available to the public. It's really like the best sort of foundation to be building new apps on today.
Yeah, I see. I just want to explain why I asked those questions because in terms of all the development and technical stuff, you're especially Colonial Labs doing an amazing job. You're just killing it. When you start to speak, I feel myself like I'm in Hogwarts and on some something like that. It's kind of magic. But let's face the fact that we will obviously have more and more normies joining like the spaces and such, and we need something like as most simple as possible to be able to explain people why and how to use and why they should use it and what will benefit them.
Just
Yeah,
to
I think
add my
the easiest way to
yeah,
I
just
think
to
the
add my
easiest
two
way to
cents before you go deeply is very much where you're right is onboarding people into it, and how you onboard is very much on the general idea. It's not so much making markets like better. Like you have to be very much driven to care about this. On our end, and where Iconia fits amazingly well is empower people to like make them discover how they can reshape everything. So it's very much into kind of the mix of you can do this, you can make it better, but if you use that a lot, you can make it a wholly different. But on this, I'll just shut myself and leave Iconia speaking.
Thanks. Yeah, I would say that rather than maybe having someone try and sermonize about why Aptos DeFi or whatever, it would probably just be to like try it out. I think that to like connect a wallet and place a trade or borrow some money or do whatever. And I think that's the easiest way is to make it click. I mean, people didn't really understand email until they were just sending emails from their smartphone. I'd say just try it out.
Yeah, cool. Actually, yeah, thanks.
One question I would ask you based on this actually is how did you get into crypto? Or what was maybe your first crypto interactions? Because it kind of feels like building Iconia is half you want to make order book better, but it's half technologically and it's half kind of more and I don't have the proper word to say, but it's almost as if you could empower people around your new order book. So I'm keen to understand kind of what triggered your view to just spend time and build pretty much an order book driven product.
I think it would be to us, there's a very clear need for this as this sort of building block at the base layer of DeFi. And our technical competence is in building high performance backend systems. And we know other engineers and other developers need high performance backend systems developed in a way that they don't need to think about, that they just plug into and use, kind of like people use Amazon Web Services or Google Cloud Platform or whatever. And we want to give them the tools that allow them to create rich user-facing front ends and different sort of DeFi experiences. And we know that there has to be a sort of base layer for that, and that's why we chose to build it, because we saw specific ways that we could leverage Aptos to make the most performant price discovery engine possible.
If I'm allowed to keep going on those questions, is it very much Aptos driven or is it somehow move driven? For example, last week Sui went live. I haven't used the blockchain itself by myself, so I won't be a great benchmark. But is it something that Iconia is going to deliver on, or is it very much kind of a one-chain objective?
So let me say something about this. So while both Sui and Aptos use the Move language, they use it in quite different ways. So you cannot say it's just Move and it doesn't matter whether Sui or Aptos. Now you have to look, actually, like you were saying, at the particular blockchain in combination with Move. which makes the value proposition here. So I don't want to say anything for or against comparison regarding Sui and Aptos, but I just want to point that out. That's different flavors of move. So specifically, Sui has kind of subsetted move significantly and then added some other features on top of it, which makes it quite a different language than what we call move today here at Aptos.
Do not worry, because all the technical people at Pitt just hated on the non-technical, because despite being a move chain, it was indeed very different. So it was quite some work. It was quite some work, but it was great just seeing into practice what could then become move. Because and let's say move. I say move from Aptos, but it's just kind of become the first one to make a move and do something at the end. And it was amazing to see, and it's anyway everyone should think about, like maybe we're lucky working from kind of L1s or oracles where you need traction, because without traction you can easily see if there's no transaction, it's useless. So it was amazing. It's still amazing to see the dedication or kind of the focus people do on providing users a product.
Yeah, I'll maybe add some more context on top of what Wolfgang said that could maybe be more specific for the Econia sort of paradigm, and that is that the move Aptos it's very similar to like a C programming language where you're like you specify an algorithm and you say, hey, I want to go look in memory and I want to find this data and I want to operate on it, and then I'm done and it'll just stay there when I'm done. And that's sort of like perfect for an order book. We want to store the order book data, and if someone comes in and places an order, we want to just go like modify the very head of the queue and settle the assets, and then leave that data just modified in storage. The Sui model, if I may provide my sort of take on it, is that it's more like a functional programming language, kind of like Haskell. It's very like object oriented, and the idea here is that you like pass all the data in sort of like as this object in a sense when you begin, and that you can't really just like store it and modify it and then put it back in the way that works for us. And there are like certain reasons why people might want to do this for their particular application, but totally agree with Wolfgang that it's a very different model. And even though like the syntax might be similar, when you're an engineer, like these make you really rethink the way you're doing everything from the bottom up. And developing Akani on top of Aptos Move has just been like so straightforward. All the technical design decisions that were made like on the development of Aptos based Move, like to us almost seemed like they were made to make Akani just run as fast as possible. And so I would say that we definitely prefer that model. Like you look in memory, you change it a little bit, and you just kind of leave it there rather than trying to like grab everything and pass it in and do something with it when you're done. And that's what I was saying earlier in the podcast. Like the TLDR and why we chose Akani is because of optimistic concurrency and dynamic memory allocation. And the dynamic memory allocation part of that is what I'm describing is what really I think differentiates these two architectures.
And unfortunately, I think that is all the time we have for. It is a little bit past 11. I thank you so much for being here. Please check out Aconia. Please check out Pith. And we'll, you want to give one last shout out to the Amsterdam Hackathon?
I'll just say one thing. All here have to see that go to live production day all together. So, like, just follow Pith, Iconia. One day you're gonna get that sweet release out, and it's gonna be how could I call it? A perpetual galore of price feeds and stuff. So it's very much treated. That's one thing where I feel, and personally, I feel that I get traction or we get product traction is people using it. So just overall, try using whenever you could use a centralized product, try using an Aptos one, and very likely you'll get a better product overall. So just just go DeFi. That's my ending word. Follow Pith, go join our Discord, go ask your question, but just go the DeFi way, because overall, that's where you'll get the most exposure to anything, and you'll get the best product overall.
Thanks for having us. Come hack with us in Amsterdam. Akania out.
And
Have a great
do
week,
tell
everyone.
me, because I'll be around for Amsterdam, so do ping me, do ping the Aptos team. We'll be around, and yeah, let's just have an amazing Amsterdam one.
Woo! Have a great week, everyone.
Thanks, guys. See ya.